The universe does not scream, it does not shout, it whispers. For billions of years, the space between the stars has been a place of absolute heavy silence. It is a vacuum, a vast ocean of darkness where sound cannot travel. If you were floating out there far beyond the orbit of Pluto, you would hear nothing but the slow, steady beating of your own heart. This silence is not empty, it is heavy. It presses against the planets. It holds the galaxies together. It is a silence that feels like it has waited for an eternity for someone to break it. It is November in the year 2025. If you look up at the night sky now, the stars look the same as they always have. They are cold, distant points of light. The constellations have not moved. The moon still rises and sets. To the average person walking down the street, the universe feels asleep. But the universe is not asleep. It has just spoken, and we are only beginning to understand what it said. To understand where we are now, we have to go back just a few days. We have to go back to the night of October 30th, 2025. Imagine the signal. Before it was numbers on a computer screen, before it was a headline on the news, it was a physical thing. It was a wave of energy. Imagine a perfectly flat, dark lake in the middle of the night. The water is so still it looks like black glass. Then a single leaf falls from a tree and touches the surface. That touch creates a ripple. The ripple moves outward, a perfect circle expanding and travelling across the water. That is what the signal was. It was a ripple in the fabric of electromagnetic fields. It travelled through the emptiness of space for a long time. We do not know yet exactly how long, but it travelled for years, perhaps centuries. It moved at the speed of light, the fastest speed in the universe. It flew past burning stars and cold dead planets. It passed through clouds of gas and dust. It did not stop. It did not fade. It carried a message held tight within its frequency, flying like an arrow toward a very small blue target called Earth. While this signal was racing toward us, our world was loud. Earth is never quiet. On October 30th, the planet was full of noise. In New York, traffic horns were blaring. In Tokyo, trains were rushing through tunnels. Millions of people were talking on phones, watching videos, arguing, laughing and crying. The air around our planet is thick with our own signals, television broadcasts, radio songs, internet data, military radar. We have created a bubble of noise around our world. We are like a noisy party in a quiet library. We were so busy making our own sounds that we almost forgot to listen to the silence outside. But not everyone was making noise. In the high desert of New Mexico, far away from the city lights, it was quiet. The air was cold and dry. Here, the Very Large Array stands. It is a collection of massive white radio antennas shaped like giant bowls. They look like huge mechanical flowers turned toward the sky. They do not look with eyes. They listen with metal ears. On this particular night, the observatory was calm. Inside the control room, the hum of the cooling fans for the supercomputers was the only sound. The room smelled of old coffee and warm electronics. It was the night shift. For astronomers, the night shift is usually boring. It is a routine. You sit in a comfortable chair, you check the monitors, and you drink coffee to stay awake. You watch lines on a graph that stay flat. You watch static, which is just the random noise of the universe, the sound of stars dying and gas moving. It is a hiss like rain on a tin roof. Dr. Sarah Jenkins was the astronomer on duty that night. She'd done this 1,000 times. She was tired. She was thinking about her grocery list, about the leaky faucet in her kitchen, about her daughter's school play. She was looking at the universe, but her mind was on Earth. The screens in front of her showed the usual data. Flat lines, random spikes of static that meant nothing. It was just another Thursday. Then it happened. It was not an explosion, it was not a crash, it was a shift. At exactly 11:42 at night local time, the ripple from deep space hit the Earth. It passed the moon in less than 2 seconds. It washed over the satellites orbiting our planet, and then it hit the metal dishes of the Very Large Array. The invisible wave struck the antennas and was focused down into the receivers. The energy was converted into electricity, then into data, and finally it appeared on Sarah's screen. The flat line on her monitor jumped. It was a sharp green spike. It rose high above the background noise. Sarah blinked. She thought it was a glitch. Maybe a plane had flown too close. Maybe a satellite was malfunctioning. She tapped her keyboard, expecting the line to go back down. It did not go down. The spike remained steady. It was strong, it was clear, and most importantly, it was artificial. Natural sounds from space like exploding stars or spinning pulsars are messy. They are like a splash of water. This signal was not messy. It was sharp and precise. It was like a single perfect note played on a piano in a room full of screaming people. Sarah sat up straight. Her heart began to beat faster, a heavy thump against her ribs. The coffee cup in her hand felt suddenly heavy. She put it down. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. She typed in a command to check the frequency. The computer responded instantly. The signal was broadcasting at exactly 1,420 megahertz. Sarah stopped breathing for a moment. Every astronomer knows this number. It is the frequency of hydrogen. Hydrogen is the most common element in the universe. It is the building block of stars. If you wanted to talk to another civilization, if you wanted to say, "Hello, we are here," you would use this frequency. It is the universal language of nature. It is the frequency that says, "I understand the math of the universe." She looked around the empty room. The servers were still humming. The clock on the wall continued to tick. The world outside was still dark and silent. But everything had changed. The feeling in the room shifted from boredom to a cold electric shock. She felt a strange sensation, a mix of terror and pure wonder. It was a physical weight in her stomach. She realized she was the first human being in history to see this. For thousands of years, humans have looked at the stars and asked, "Are we alone?" Kings, philosophers, and children have all asked the same question. And now, on a quiet Thursday night in October, a computer screen in New Mexico was answering it. "No," the screen seemed to say, "you're not alone." The signal began to change. It was not just a tone anymore. The data stream started to show a pattern. It was a series of pulses, short then long, on then off. It was a structured sequence. It was information. Sarah's hands were shaking now. She could not stop them. She grabbed the phone to call the director of the observatory, but she hesitated. She looked at the screen again just to be sure. She needed to be absolutely certain. She checked the source coordinates. The signal was not coming from a satellite. It was not coming from a military test. It was coming from a fixed point in the sky from the direction of the constellation Lyra. She closed her eyes for a second. She tried to imagine the source. She tried to imagine who or what had sent this ripple across the ocean of the void. Was it a machine? Was it a biological creature? Was the sender still alive, or had this message been travelling for so long that their civilization was already dust? The silence of the room felt different now. It was no longer a lonely silence. It was a pregnant silence full of presence. The noise of Earth, the politics, the wars, the traffic suddenly felt very small and very far away. The only thing that mattered was that green line on the screen. She picked up the phone. Her voice was a whisper, cracking with emotion, matching the quiet power of the signal she had just found. "Wake them up," she whispered into the receiver. "Wake everyone up." Outside, the giant dishes stood still against the stars, drinking in the message. The ripple had passed, but the water would never be still again. The long isolation of humanity had ended. The awakening had begun. The stranger passing through the village, to grasp the concept of an interstellar object and a hyperbolic trajectory. Imagine our solar system is a small, quiet village at night. The sun is the bonfire in the town square, and the planets Earth, Mars, Jupiter are the villagers dancing in circles around that fire. We have been dancing these circles for billions of years. We are bound here. We belong to the village. Occasionally comets from the outer edges of our own system, the Oort cloud, drift in. These are like villagers who live on the distant outskirts. They visit the bonfire and then return to their homes on the edge of town. They are still part of our community. 3i Atlas is different. It is not a villager. It is a traveller sprinting through the darkness. It comes from a completely different town, perhaps one that no longer exists. It enters our village not to stay and not to dance in a circle. It moves with such incredible speed and purpose that the gravity of our sun, the village bonfire, cannot hold it. This is what scientists mean by a hyperbolic trajectory. Most things in space travel in ellipses ovals, which are closed loops. If you travel in an ellipse, you will eventually come back. A hyperbola is an open shape. It looks like a slightly bent line. The object dives in from the north, swoops past the sun, bends its path slightly due to gravity, and then shoots out toward the south, never to return. It is the path of a stranger walking past our house, glancing in the window for a brief second and continuing into the night. The lineage of visitors. Oumuamua, Borisov and Atlas. 3i Atlas is not the first stranger to visit, but it is arguably the most intriguing. We first met Oumuamua in 2017. It was the Scout's strange, elongated, tumbling end over end and suspiciously dry. It looked like a shard of rock or metal, offering no tail of gas or dust, leaving astronomers baffled about its nature. It was a ghost that refused to speak. Then came 2i Borisov in 2019. Borisov was much more familiar. It looked exactly like the comets we have in our own solar system, full of ice and dust, shedding a beautiful tail as it warmed up. It told us that other star systems have snowballs just like ours. 3I's atlas represents the third point in this dataset. If Oumuamua was the rock and Borisov was the snowball, Atlas appears to be something more complex. It bridges the gap. It carries the heavy dark materials of a rocky body, yet it interacts with the sunlight in a way that suggests hidden volatiles, pockets of frozen gas, trapped deep beneath a crust waiting to hiss into the vacuum. By comparing Atlas to its two predecessors, we begin to see that the galaxy is not sending us the same thing twice. It is showing us a diverse menu of cosmic debris, a child of a forgotten star. The most haunting aspect of 3I Atlas is its origin story. We must try to visualize where it was born. Billions of years ago, in a sector of the galaxy far removed from here, there was another star. Perhaps it was a young, violent blue star surrounded by a chaotic disk of dust and colliding planetoids. In that violent nursery, massive planets, specifically the size of Jupiter, were shifting their orbits, wreaking gravitational havoc. In the chaos of that young system, trillions of rocks and ice chunks were not allowed to settle into stable planets. Instead, they were kicked out. Or perhaps 3I Atlas was born around a dying star. Imagine a red giant star swelling up in its final days, consuming its inner planets. As the star lost mass and its gravity weakened, the outer icy bodies of that system were unmoored. Like a grip loosening on a spinning rope, the star let go, and its children flew off into the void. Regardless of the specific scenario, the moment of separation was violent. 3I Atlas was likely slingshotted by a giant planet. One moment it was orbiting its home sun, the next it borrowed energy from a planet's gravity and achieved escape velocity. It was ejected from its home, cast out into the interstellar medium, the loneliness of the long dark. Once it left its home system, the noise stopped. The light faded. For the next few million, or perhaps billion years, 3I Atlas existed in the interstellar medium, the vast empty cathedral between the stars. It is hard for the human mind to comprehend the isolation of this journey. In the space between stars, the temperature drops to nearly absolute zero. There is no sound, there is no wind, there is only stasis. For eons, this object floated in total darkness. It was frozen solid, a time capsule preserving the chemical history of its birth. While this object drifted in the dark, entire species rose and fell on Earth. Dinosaurs evolved, dominated the planet, and went extinct. The continents of Earth drifted apart and crashed back together. Ice ages came and went, and through all of that noise and life on our blue marble 3I Atlas was silently rushing through the void at speeds of tens of thousands of kilometers per second, heading blindly toward a meeting with our sun. It travelled through the Oort cloud of other stars, threading the needle between distant gravitational territories. It was bombarded by cosmic rays, high-energy particles that slowly darkened its surface, baking a crust over its icy heart. This space weathering turned its skin into a dark, organic, rich layer, a protective shield hiding the pristine secrets inside. The brief encounter, and then finally it saw a light growing in the distance, our sun. After millions of years of cold silence, 3I Atlas began to feel heat. As it plunged into our solar system, it woke up. The warmth of the sun began to penetrate that dark, weathered crust. The heart of the object, frozen since the dawn of its own creation, began to expand. This implies that 3I Atlas is a courier. It carries samples of a star system we will never see from a time we can never visit. It brings us the chemical fingerprint of a different part of the Milky Way. When it releases gas or dust as it passes us, it is releasing atoms that were forged in an alien fire. However, because of its hyperbolic trajectory, this encounter is fleeting. It is moving too fast to stop. Gravity pulls it in, accelerates it to its maximum speed at the perihelion, the closest point to the sun, and then flings it back out. We have only a matter of weeks, perhaps months, to train our telescopes on it before it fades back into the darkness. It will not return. Once it exits our solar system, it will head toward a different constellation, perhaps to drift for another billion years before passing another star. We are just a brief waypoint in its eternal lonely voyage. If we listen closely to the silence of the universe, we expect to hear the chaotic static of dying stars and the random noise of cosmic dust. But imagine for a moment that the static clears. Through the speakers of our radio telescopes, a rhythm emerges. It is not a simple beep repeating itself like a heartbeat. It is a climbing ladder of numbers. 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13. To a linguist, this might sound like silence, but to a mathematician, a biologist, or an artist, this is a shout across the void. It is the undeniable signature of intelligence using the oldest language in existence, the language of nature. This sequence of numbers is known as the Fibonacci sequence. On the surface, the math is incredibly simple, so simple that a human child can understand it. You start with 0 and 1, and to get the next number, you simply add the two numbers before it. 1 plus 1 equals 2, 1 plus 2 equals 3, 2 plus 3 equals 5, 3 plus 5 equals 8. It continues forever, growing larger and larger. However, the simplicity of the addition is a disguise for something much more profound. This is not just a list of numbers, it is the blueprint for how our reality is built. It is the rulebook for efficiency and growth. When we ask why an advanced civilization would choose this specific pattern to say hello, we must look at our own planet for the answer. Nature hates to waste space and it hates to waste energy. Over millions of years of evolution, life on Earth has found that this specific sequence is the most efficient way to pack things together and to grow without breaking. Consider the common sunflower. If you look at the dark center of the flower, you will see hundreds of seeds. They are not thrown together randomly. They are arranged in beautiful spiraling arcs that curve clockwise and counterclockwise. If you take the time to count these spirals, you'll almost always find a Fibonacci number. You might count 21 spirals going one way and 34 going the other, or perhaps 34 and 55. Nature chooses these numbers because they represent the golden ratio. This is a special relationship between numbers that allows the flower to pack the maximum number of seeds into the smallest possible space with no gaps and no overcrowding. It is a mathematical miracle of engineering. We see this same signature in the hard shell of the nautilus, a sea creature that has lived in our oceans for millions of years. As the creature grows, it needs a larger home, but it cannot change its shape. It simply builds a new chamber slightly larger than the last one. The result is a perfect logarithmic spiral, a curve that widens at a constant rate. This curve is drawn by the numbers of the Fibonacci sequence. It is elegant, strong, and mathematically precise. This is why the sequence is not random. Randomness is messy. Randomness creates gaps, clusters, and chaos. If we look at the clouds or the scattering of rocks on a beach, there is no clear pattern. But when we see a spiral galaxy spinning in the darkness of space, its arms holding billions of stars, we see that same golden curve again. From the smallest pine cone in a forest to the shape of a hurricane seen from space and all the way to the structure of the Milky Way galaxy, the universe follows this rule. Therefore, if an alien civilization wanted to signal their existence, they would not send a picture of themselves because we might not understand how to look at it. They would not send a recording of their voice because sound cannot travel through the vacuum of space. They would send the Fibonacci sequence. By sending these numbers 8, 13, 21, 34, they are proving two things. First, they are proving that they can do math. Second, and perhaps more importantly, they are proving that they have observed the universe. They are telling us, we see the same flowers, the same shells, and the same galaxies that you do. We understand the laws of growth. We are observers of the same reality. There is a deep philosophical beauty in this. It transforms mathematics from a cold hard subject into a form of art. When the signal arrives carrying the elegance of the number 8, followed by the distinct sharp pulse of 13, it is a bridge connecting two minds. The number 8 is not just a digit. In this context, it represents a perfect octave, a moment of balance. The number 13 pushes the pattern forward. As the numbers climb higher to 5589 and beyond, the signal becomes a demonstration of scale. It shows that the sender understands that patterns repeat from the microscopic to the macroscopic. It is a moving thought to realize that a creature born under a different sun, perhaps with a body made of silicon or gas, would look at a spiral in their own world and derive the same formula that we teach in our schools. It suggests that math is not something humans invented, it is something we discovered. It was already there, written in the DNA of the cosmos, waiting to be read. When we receive this signal, the message is not about conquest or war or resources. The message is simply order. In a universe that is constantly trying to pull itself apart with entropy and decay, life and intelligence are the forces that create order. The Fibonacci sequence is the flag of that order. It is the way life says, I am growing, I am surviving, I am here. So the reception of these numbers would be the ultimate confirmation of kinship. We would know that the senders are not just raw biological accidents, but thinkers who appreciate the elegance of efficiency. They are artists who see the beauty in the curve of a shell. They are philosophers who understand that to grow is to add to what came before. The numbers are a handshake. The 8 grips the 5, the 13 grips the 8, an unbroken chain stretching across the light years. It is the most graceful, intelligent, and humble way to say that we are not alone in the dark. To understand why the signal detected by 3i Atlas was so terrifyingly important, we must first understand the silence that came before it. We have to look at the map of the universe, not a map of stars and galaxies, but a map of radio frequencies. In the vast, noisy electromagnetic spectrum of the universe, there is a specific quiet spot. Astronomers call this the cosmic waterhole. The name is a beautiful metaphor borrowed from nature on Earth. In the vast savannas of Africa, animals of all different species, predators and prey alike, must eventually come to the waterhole to drink. It is the one place where meetings are inevitable. In the galaxy, the waterhole is the frequency range between 1420 MHz and 1660 MHz. This is the meeting place of the stars, and right at the bottom of this quiet valley at exactly 1420 MHz sits the most important broadcast in physics, the hydrogen line, the dance of the hydrogen atom. The universe is made mostly of hydrogen. It is the simplest element in existence, the building block of all stars and galaxies. A hydrogen atom is incredibly simple. It consists of just one proton in the center and one electron orbiting around it. Imagine these two particles are like tiny spinning tops. They can spin in the same direction or they can spin in opposite directions. When the electron in a hydrogen atom decides to flip its spin so that it's moving opposite to the proton, it releases a tiny packet of energy. This energy travels across the cosmos as a radio wave. The length of this wave is exactly 21 centimeters. The frequency of this wave is exactly 1420 megahertz. This is not a number humans invented. We did not choose it like we choose a radio station for pop music or news. This is a fundamental constant of nature. It is the song that hydrogen sings. Because hydrogen fills the empty spaces between the stars, the entire universe is quietly humming this tune. It is the background rhythm of existence. The logic of 1959. In 1959, two physicists named Philip Morrison and Giuseppe Cocconi published a paper that changed history. They asked a simple but profound question. If there are intelligent aliens out there and they want to talk to us, how would they do it? The universe is too big to shout in bow in every direction. It is too loud to guess a random frequency. You need a meeting point. You need a channel that everyone knows. Morrison and Cocconi realized that any intelligent civilization, no matter how different they look or how they think, would study astronomy. They would know about hydrogen. They would build radio telescopes to listen to the stars. Therefore, they would know that 1420 MHz is the most universal standard in the cosmos. They wrote that this frequency is the unique objective standard of frequency. It was a stroke of genius. They suggested that if you wanted to signal across the dark void, you would transmit right on top of the hydrogen line or right next to it. It is the galactic equivalent of knocking on the front door rather than throwing pebbles at the back window. This logic created the foundation of SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. For the first time, humans weren't just looking for visual signs of life. We started listening for a mathematical handshake. 60 years of silence. For the next 6 decades, humanity listened. It was an exercise in extreme patience, perhaps the most patient scientific experiment in human history. It began seriously in 1960 with Project Ozma, led by the famous astronomer Frank Drake. He pointed a radio telescope at two nearby stars, Tau Ceti and Epsilon Eridani, tuned to the magic frequency of 1420 MHz. He hoped to hear a pattern, a series of beeps or a sequence of prime numbers. He heard nothing but static, the hiss of the cosmos. Over the years, the search expanded. We built massive ears like the Arecibo Observatory in Puerto Rico. We scanned millions of channels. We looked at thousands of stars. We analysed the data with supercomputers. But the great silence continued. There were brief moments of excitement like the famous WOW signal in 1977, a strong burst of radio waves that looked artificial, but it never repeated. It was a ghost in the machine. The silence returned heavier than before. This long vigil tested the human spirit. Critics argued that SETI was a waste of time, a search for imaginary friends. They said that if the galaxy were full of life, we would have heard something by now. This is often called the Fermi paradox. If they are out there, where are they? Yet the astronomers kept listening. They sat in control rooms late at night, drinking cold coffee, watching static dance on their screens. They held on to the belief that 1420 MHz was still the best bet. They believed that the silence wasn't proof that we are alone, but simply proof that we hadn't been listening long enough or with sensitive enough ears. The significance of the 3i Atlas discovery. This history is why the discovery by the 3i Atlas system is so earth-shattering. When the AI flagged the anomaly, the most critical piece of data wasn't just the strength of the signal, it was the frequency. The signal was locked precisely with terrifying accuracy to the hydrogen line. If the signal had been at a random frequency, say 1550 MHz or 900 MHz, scientists might have dismissed it as a natural phenomenon. Pulsars rotating neutron stars emit radio waves. Quasars emit radio waves. Dying stars scream out in radio energy, but nature is messy. Natural signals drift. They are broad and noisy. The 3i Atlas signal was different. It was sharp, it was narrow, and it was parked exactly at the universal meeting place. By choosing 1420 MHz, the sender was sending two messages at once. The first message was the data inside the signal. The second message was the medium itself. By using the hydrogen line, the sender was saying, "We know you are listening here. We know you understand the physics of the atom. We are intelligent just like you." It validated 60 years of waiting. It proved that Morrison and Cocconi were right back in 1959. The cosmic waterhole was not empty. Someone else had finally come to the river to drink, and they were looking back at us from the other side. The silence was broken. The wait was over. But now a new and much more frightening question emerged. Now that we have established a connection on the universal channel, what are they trying to say? The universe has a very specific recipe book. When stars and planets are born, they follow a set of chemical rules that have existed for billions of years. Astronomers rely on these rules to identify what things are made of even when those objects are millions of miles away. By studying the light reflecting off an object, scientists can read its spectral fingerprint. This tells them exactly which elements are present. But when the telescopes focused on 3i Atlas, the fingerprint they saw was not just rare. According to our current understanding of the universe, it was impossible. This brings us to the alchemy of the stars. To understand why this object was so shocking, we first have to look at how a normal comet is built. A standard comet is often described as a dirty snowball. It is a frozen leftover from the dawn of a solar system made up of water ice dust, carbon dioxide, and rocky materials. Deep inside these rocks, you will almost always find two metals paired together, iron and nickel. In nature, iron and nickel are like siblings that hold hands. They are created together in the hearts of dying stars and spread across the galaxy. In almost every asteroid, comet, or meteorite we have ever studied. If you find nickel, you will find a massive amount of iron along with it. The ratio is usually predictable. For every small bit of nickel, there is a large pile of iron. This is the standard rule of cosmic geology, the chemical impossibility. However, when the data came back from 3i Atlas, the scientists were confused. They ran the tests again, thinking there was a mistake with the equipment. But the results remained the same. The object contained nickel, but it had almost no iron. In the Coltan text of natural formation, this does not make sense. There is no known natural process in deep space that can separate nickel from iron so perfectly. To separate these two metals requires heat pressure and, most importantly, intent. It requires a factory, a smelter, or a refinery. It implies a manufacturing process where someone or something deliberately removed the iron to leave behind pure nickel or a specific nickel alloy. On Earth, we use nickel alloys for very specific things. We use them in jet engines and the hulls of submarines because they are incredibly resistant to heat and corrosion. A natural rock does not need to be heat resistant, but a machine travelling through the intense radiation of deep space or diving close to burning stars would need exactly that kind of protection. The Trojan horse camouflaging as a comet. This chemical anomaly leads to a disturbing theory the object was camouflaged. Imagine a deep-sea submarine designed to look like a whale so it can move through the ocean unnoticed. 3i Atlas appears to have used a similar strategy. When it first entered our solar system, it looked mostly natural. It was wrapped in a shell of frozen gases and dust. To any astronomer watching from Earth, it looked like just another wandering rock. It had the coma, the fuzzy cloud of gas that surrounds a comet, and it was moving in a way that gravity dictated. But this natural appearance was likely a shield. The ice and dust served two purposes. First, they protected the core object during its long journey through the freezing void between stars. Second, they acted as a disguise. If the object had arrived looking like a shiny metallic cylinder, human civilization would have panicked immediately. By looking like a dirty snowball, it allowed itself to get close to Earth without raising an alarm until it was too late. The antitail and the shedding of the disguise. The moment the illusion began to break happened near the Sun. Comets usually develop two tails, a dust tail and an ion tail made of charged gas. Sometimes due to an optical illusion caused by the angle of the Earth, a comet appears to have a spike pointing towards the Sun, which we call an antitail. 3i Atlas displayed a prominent antitail as it approached. Astronomers watched it with interest, expecting it to behave like the tails of other comets. But then something strange happened. The anti-tail didn't just fade away slowly, it disappeared abruptly. This event coincided perfectly with the strange gravitational push mentioned in earlier reports. It suggests that the tail might not have been a tail at all. Instead of ice melting off a rock, we may have been witnessing the exhaust of an engine or the shedding of a protective shell. Picture a rocket shedding its booster stages. When the outer casing falls away, the shape of the object changes and the trail of debris stops. The disappearance of the anti-tail was the moment the object stopped pretending to be a rock. The natural phase of its life was over. The dirty ice had melted away or was cast off, revealing the true artificial structure beneath. The signal and the machine. It was exactly at this moment when the tail vanished, and the nickel composition was revealed that the signal began. This timing is crucial. If the object were a natural comet breaking apart, the release of gas would be chaotic and random. But the sequence of events here was orderly. First, the disguise is dropped. Second, the trajectory is stabilized. Third, the transmitter is activated. This is where the hypothesis of Avi Loeb, a prominent astrophysicist from Harvard, becomes very compelling. Loeb suggested that we need to stop bending the laws of physics to force these objects to be natural. If an object behaves like a light sail or a probe, we should treat it as a candidate for artificial technology. He argued that the universe is full of floating debris, but a rock made of pure nickel that accelerates by itself is not debris, it is a device. Loeb's theory fits the data of 3I Atlas perfectly. If the object was indeed a probe, the high nickel content makes sense. It is likely the material of the hull, perhaps a super strong alloy designed to survive millions of years in the vacuum of space. The missing iron isn't missing, it was simply never part of the blueprint. You don't build a spaceship out of raw iron ore, you build it out of refined specific metals. Transition from nature to machine. The most haunting image of this event is the transition itself. We are used to seeing the universe as a place of dead, silent rocks tumbling through the dark. We view comets as mutant fossils, but 3I Atlas forced us to watch a metamorphosis. In the data streams and the light curves, we watched a dead thing wake up. It entered our view as a chaotic, tumbling piece of nature. But as it stripped away its icy camouflage, the chaos vanished. The chemistry became pure and industrial. The movement became precise. The silence was broken by a rhythmic artificial signal. It was no longer a celestial body subject to the random winds of the cosmos. It had become a machine with a mission. The chemistry proved it was built, the motion proved it was guided, and the signal proved it was calling home. This was not just a rock that forgot its iron, it was a visitor that had finally decided to take off its mask. In the immediate aftermath of the signal's discovery, the world expected a press conference. We are used to the rhythm of modern news cycles. When something big happens, someone in a suit stands behind a podium with a microphone and explains it to us. We expect NASA to release a statement. We expect the European Space Agency to post an update on social media. We expect the frantic energy of breaking news. But this time the reaction was different. It was terrifyingly quiet. To understand why this silence is so significant, you have to understand how these organizations usually work. Typically, space agencies are very eager to debunk mysteries. If a blurry video of a UFO goes viral, or if an amateur astronomer claims they found a new planet, the experts are quick to correct the record. They love to explain things. They enjoy showing the public that what looked like a spaceship was actually just a weather balloon, a satellite reflection, or a pulsar star spinning rapidly. They usually respond within hours to clarify the facts and calm the public imagination. This time the official channels went dead. The Twitter accounts of major observatories stopped posting. The daily press briefings were cancelled without explanation. The live feeds from the International Space Station were replaced by a generic technical difficulties screen. This was not the behaviour of institutions that had found a simple error. This was the behaviour of institutions that were in a state of shock. The silence was the loudest sound on Earth. It created a vacuum, and in physics, nature abhors a vacuum. In the absence of official truth, the public began to fill the empty space with fear and speculation. But for those who analyse institutional behaviour, this no-comment strategy was the strongest evidence that the signal was real. If the signal was just a glitch in the computer code or interference from a microwave oven in the break room as had happened once before, they would have laughed it off and told us immediately. The fact that they were saying nothing meant they were taking it deadly seriously. Inside the command centres behind the closed doors of mission control in Houston, Darmstadt and Beijing, the atmosphere was likely suffocating. We can imagine the scene not as a chaotic movie with people running in hallways, but as a room filled with a cold, heavy tension. The process of verification in these moments is rigorous and exhausting. Before any announcement can be made, the data must be triple-checked. Scientists would be looking at the signal to see if it had a natural origin. They would be measuring the frequency in megahertz and gigahertz, looking for the telltale signs of natural cosmic noise. Natural signals like those from dying stars are usually messy and random. They repeat, but they do not have structure. The signal they were looking at likely had structure. It had math. The engineers would be running blind tests. This is where they ask a separate team who does not know where the data came from to analyze it. If both teams come up with the same impossible conclusion, the room gets quieter. They would be checking the positioning of the telescopes, ensuring the equipment was cooled to almost absolute zero to prevent heat interference. They would be calling up military satellites to see if there were any secret government tests happening in that sector of the sky. Every second that ticked by without an answer meant that the boring explanations were being ruled out one by one. No, it was not a satellite. No, it was not a reflection. No, it was not a hacker. This leads us to the psychology of the silence. Why hide it? Why not share the discovery with the world immediately? The answer lies in this concept of crowd management. Governments and large organizations operate on the principle of stability. Their primary job is to keep society functioning. People need to go to work, money needs to hold its value, and laws need to be obeyed. The discovery of intelligent life elsewhere disrupts all of these things. It is called an ontological shock, a shock to the very nature of our existence. There is a famous study from the 1960s, often whispered about in conspiracy circles, that suggested that if humanity were to contact aliens, society might collapse. The fear is that if we realize we are not special, and that there are beings vastly superior to us, our religions, our borders, and our economies might seem meaningless. If you know that a civilization 1,000 years more advanced than us is watching, do you still worry about paying your taxes next Tuesday? The silence of the giants was a dam being built to hold back a flood of panic. They were buying time. They needed to know not just what the signal was, but what it meant before they told the public. Was it a greeting? Was it a threat? Was it a map? You cannot just tell the world something is out there without knowing if that something is friendly or hostile. But this delay revealed a deeper, more uncomfortable truth about humanity. We are not ready. We like to think we are explorers. We watch movies about Star Wars and read books about galactic empires. We claim we want to know the truth. We look up at the stars and say, I hope someone is out there. But there is a massive difference between the fantasy of aliens and the reality of them. The fantasy is safe, it is entertainment. The reality is an existential threat. The tension between our curiosity and our fear is what defines this moment. We want to know, but we are terrified of the answer. As the silence from NASA and the ESA stretched from hours into days, the tension began to snap. The public was no longer asking, is it real? They were asking, why won't you tell us? This created a divide. On one side you had the giants, the scientists, the generals, the politicians who felt that information was dangerous and needed to be controlled. They believed they were protecting the sheep from the wolf. On the other side you had the public who felt that the truth belonged to everyone regardless of how scary it was. The silence also suggested that the signal was not just a noise, it was likely a message. If it were just a beep, they might have released it. But if the signal contained data sequences of prime numbers, geometric shapes, or images encoded in binary, then the implications were too big for a press release. It would mean that we were being spoken to directly. The irony of the situation is palpable. For decades we have pointed our radio telescopes at the sky, begging the universe to speak to us. We sent out gold records on the Voyager probes with pictures of humans and sounds of Earth, hoping someone would find them. We have been the lonely child in the playground shouting, "Hello!" into the darkness. Now the darkness has finally shouted hello back, and our first reaction is to hide, to lock the doors, and to refuse to speak. The silence of the giants is not just a cover-up, it is a mirror. It reflects our profound insecurity. It shows that for all our technology, our smartphones and our skyscrapers, we are still primitive biological creatures who are afraid of the dark. The institutions went silent because they are made of people, and those people were staring into an abyss that made them feel incredibly small. As the third day of silence approached, the pressure was becoming unsustainable. Leaks were beginning to spring, junior researchers were whispering to journalists on encrypted messaging apps. Amateur astronomers were pooling their data to recreate what the big telescopes had seen. The dam could not hold the water forever. The world was holding its breath, waiting for the giants to speak. But the longer they waited, the more we realized that their silence was the answer we had been looking for all along. They weren't silent because they didn't know what was happening. They were silent because they knew exactly what was happening, and they knew that once they said the words, the world would never be the same again. The era of human loneliness was over, but the era of human anxiety had just begun. The static has cleared. The noise of the cosmos has faded into a heavy expectant silence. After all the decoding, the mathematics and the geometry, the message does not end with a coordinate or a map. It ends with an instruction. It ends with a choice. We have distilled the final transmission down to 4 distinct concepts. They are not just words, they are stages of being. They are observe, prepare, understand, and the final haunting declaration, the gate awaits. Let us walk through these 4 pillars together, for they are the instructions for the next step in human evolution. 1. Observe. The first command is deceptively simple. Observe. You might think we have been doing this all along. We have telescopes that can see light from the beginning of time. We have microscopes that can see the building blocks of life. But this message implies something deeper. To observe in this context means to look without interference. It asks us to remove the filter of our human bias. When we look at the stars, we often look for reflections of ourselves. We look for water because we drink water. We look for radio waves because we use radio. But the universe is far stranger than our limited imagination. To truly observe, we must stop projecting our fears and our desires onto the cosmos. We must become the silent witness. It is the scientific method in its purest form, absolute humility before the evidence. It suggests that before we can move forward, we must stop shouting into the void and simply listen to what the silence is telling us. 2. Prepare. The second command is harder. Prepare. Prepare for what? If you are inviting a guest to dinner, you clean your house. If you are going on a long journey, you pack your bags. But how do you prepare for a journey where the destination is unknown? This preparation is likely not physical. We cannot pack oxygen tanks or food rations for a journey through a dimensional gate. The preparation is internal. It is a shedding of baggage. Think of our history. We carry the baggage of war, of tribalism, of greed, and of fear. If the gate is a filter, perhaps it does not allow these things to pass through. To prepare might mean we have to solve our problems here on Earth first. A divided species cannot cross a threshold that requires unity. If we step through the gate while holding onto our weapons, we might find that the gate destroys us. Prepare is a warning. It says you are not ready yet. Get your house in order. 3. Understand. The third step is the bridge. Understand. This is the cognitive leap. Observing gives us data. Understanding gives us meaning. For decades, we have treated physics and philosophy as separate things, but at the level of advanced civilizations, they might be the same. To understand might mean realizing that consciousness, our ability to think and feel, is not an accident. It might be a fundamental part of the universe, just like gravity or electromagnetism. This part of the message suggests that we need to grow up intellectually. We need to move from being smart to being wise. Intelligence is knowing how to split the atom. Wisdom is understanding why you shouldn't use it to destroy a city. The message implies that the gate will not open for mere intelligence. It opens for wisdom. We must understand our place in the cosmic web not as conquerors of space, but as caretakers of life. 4. The gate awaits, and finally the destination. The 3 previous steps lead to this singular, terrifying, and beautiful concept: the gate awaits. What is this gate? Is it a wormhole? In the language of physics, we might call this an Einstein-Rosen bridge. Imagine a piece of paper representing the universe. If you want to get from one side to the other, you have to walk the whole distance. But if you fold them where the 2 points touch, you punch a hole and you step through. This is the classic idea of a shortcut through space-time. If the gate is physical, it means the distances between stars are no longer a prison. It means the galaxy is our backyard. Is it a cognitive leap? Perhaps the gate is not a physical object floating in space. Maybe the gate is a metaphor for a new state of mind. Perhaps stepping through the gate means uploading our consciousness into a digital network or unlocking a dormant part of the human brain. Maybe the gate is inside us. The message could be telling us that the only way to travel the stars is to leave our biological bodies behind. Is it an invitation or a test? The phrase "the gate awaits" is passive. It does not say enter now. It does not say we are coming. It simply sits there. It is patient. This implies that the gate is an invitation. Think of the monolith in the movie 2001: A Space Odyssey. It stands silent, waiting for the monkeys to touch it. When they do, they evolve. The gate is a mirror. It reflects us. It waits for us to be brave enough to look into it. The philosophy of the threshold. Now, I want you to pause, close your eyes for a moment, and imagine this scenario. Tomorrow, the scientists announce they have found the location. It is real. A shimmer in space out past the orbit of Saturn. A door has opened. Would you step through? This is the ultimate question of our existence. We are a species born of curiosity. We crossed the oceans on wooden rafts when we didn't know if we would fall off the edge of the world. We strapped ourselves to rockets to walk on the moon. It is in our DNA to cross the threshold. But this is different. If you step through the gate, you are admitting that you are ready to leave humanity, as we know it, behind. You cannot be a simple primate on the other side of that door. The environment, the physics, and the beings you meet will demand that you evolve. The fear of the unknown. There is a concept called the Great Filter. It is the idea that civilizations rise, but eventually they hit a wall, a filter that destroys them. Maybe it's nuclear war, maybe it's climate collapse, or maybe the filter is fear. Maybe the gate is always open, but most civilizations are too afraid to step through. We stay in our cradle on our safe little blue planet until our sun burns out. To step through is to accept that we might die. But to stay here is to ensure that we never truly live. The responsibility of the keys. Imagine the gate is locked and we have just been given the keys. Those keys are observe, prepare and understand. The message is not a promise of salvation. The aliens or the future humans or whoever sent this are not coming to save us. They have simply turned on the porch light. They have unlocked the door. They are waiting to see if we can walk up the stairs on our own. So as we stand at this threshold looking into the deep darkness of the gate, we are not just looking at a scientific anomaly, we are looking at our future. The gate represents the end of our childhood. Are we brave enough to walk through the fire of transformation? Or will we turn back, close our eyes and retreat into the safety of our ignorance? The message has been delivered. The static is gone. The silence is deafening. The gate awaits. The move is yours. We have arrived at the final chapter of our journey together. We are standing here in this precise moment, balancing on the edge of history. As we look at the calendar, the dates of December 2025 and March 2026 shine like beacons in the fog. They are not just dates, they are destinations. They represent the turning of a massive page in the story of humanity. Right now, however, we are living in the pause. We are in the quiet of history. Think of this moment like the silence in a concert hall just before the conductor raises the baton. The musicians are ready. The audience is holding its breath. The air is electric with anticipation, but there is no sound yet. That is where we are. We are in the wait. For many, waiting can feel anxious. It can feel like a void. But let us look at this differently. This silence is not empty. It is full. It is a time of preparation. It is the deep breath we take before we dive into a new ocean. In this quiet space looking toward late 2025, we have a rare opportunity to reflect on who we are. For thousands of years, humans have looked up at the night sky and felt a mix of awe and loneliness. We built great cities, we fought wars over lines drawn on maps, and we obsessed over our differences. We did this because we thought we were the only story being told in the universe. We thought this small blue planet was the entire stage. But that is changing. The shift has already begun. As we move closer to the revelations of 2026, a profound change is happening in the human mind. It is a shift in consciousness. When you realize that the galaxy is teeming with life, that we have neighbors in the stars, the borders between our countries begin to look like cracks in the pavement, insignificant when viewed from high above. This waiting period is allowing us to grow up. We are moving from a species of fearful isolation to a species of curiosity and connection. We are realizing that before we are citizens of any nation, we are citizens of Earth. We are Earthlings. This title, which once sounded like something from a science fiction movie, is becoming our most important identity. Imagine the scientists right now working in quiet rooms around the world. They are monitoring the radio telescopes. They are filtering through the cosmic static, the background noise of the universe. They are listening for the signal that will cut through the silence. They are using mathematics, the universal language, to decode messages that have traveled for hundreds or thousands of light years. When we talk about these distances, we do not need complex symbols or equations to understand the beauty of it. We just need to understand time. A message sent from a distant star is a ghost from the past arriving to shape our future. It is a handshake across time. As we approach December 2025, the excitement will build. It will be like the arrival of a long-lost relative. And by March 2026, the horizon will be fully visible. We will no longer be guessing. We will know. But what will we know? We will know that the universe is not a cold, dead vacuum. It is a garden. We are simply one flower in a vast meadow of wildflowers. This realization brings a deep, settling peace. It takes the pressure off of us. We do not have to be the masters of the universe. We just have to be participants. We are joining a conversation that has been going on for millions of years before we invented the radio. So as you settle down now, let go of the anxiety of the unknown. The unknown is not a monster hiding in the dark. The unknown is just a friend you haven't met yet. Think about the horizon. When you stand at the beach and look out at the ocean, the horizon is where the water meets the sky. It looks like the end of the world, but it isn't. If you sailed to that horizon, you would find a new one and then another. That is what is happening to us. We are sailing toward a new horizon of understanding. Let your mind drift to that future. Imagine a world where the news is not about conflict, but about discovery. Imagine a morning in the 2026 where the headlines announce that we have received a greeting. Think of the unity that will wash over the planet, the feeling that we are all on the same team. Now bring your attention back to the present moment, back to the safety of your room. The world outside is quiet. The stars are overhead doing what they have done for billions of years, burning bright, steady and calm. You are part of this calmness. You are made of the same stuff as those stars, the carbon in your cells, the iron in your blood, the oxygen you are breathing right now. It was all forged in the hearts of ancient stars. You are not just in the universe, you are the universe experiencing itself as a human being for a little while. There is no need to rush toward the future. The dates will arrive on their own. December will come, March will come, the history books will be written. For now, your only job is to rest. Your only job is to be here in the gentle silence. Feel the gravity holding you. Gravity is not just a force, it is a hug from the earth. It keeps you grounded, it keeps you safe, it anchors you while your mind floats free. As you close your eyes, visualize the night sky above you. It is not a dark ceiling, it is a window. Through that window you can see the infinite potential of what lies ahead. We are stepping out of our cradle, we are learning to walk, and we are finding out that the house is full of family. You are not alone, you have never been alone. From the smallest blade of grass to the furthest galaxy spinning in the deep velvet black of space, everything is connected. The wait is almost over. The horizon is glowing with the first light of dawn. But for tonight, the work is done. The thinking is done. The wondering is done. Drift into the comfort of this knowledge. Let the idea of a populated, friendly universe wrap around you like a warm blanket. The stars are watching over you like nightlights in a grand hallway. Sleep now. Rest in the certainty that we are part of something beautiful. Rest in the peace of the stars. Good night.